Bo, stoked to have you on the show finally. I feel like I started like working my way through a list of like people on the internet or on socials that I've communicated little bit with in the past, and just kind of working my way through these people. And I feel bad for someone like Terry. I just had Terry on the show, and like I should have had him on like way long ago, but um, regardless, I'm stoked. Like you're definitely one of those guys that I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I'm glad we made this happen. I'm glad you took the time to make it happen, and welcome to the show.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate being on here, and yeah, I can say that I've always listened, and I always, it's always been something I wanted to do was sit down and talk with you, even just to get to meet you. Actually, not
Yeah,
even just be on the show. I wanted to meet you,
absolutely.
and yeah, so no, it feels good to be chatting with you.
I found that as well as like this has been one of the best parts about this podcast is just like having an excuse or a reason to reach out to somebody and meet and actually have a chat with them. I've put that in like when I reach out to people and I ask them if they want to be on the show and they're all like hesitant about whether to do it or not. I'm like, dude, it's just like a conversation. It's just a FaceTime call. Let's just let's just have a convo. I'd love to even just meet you and talk to you, and I'll just happen to record it. I'll turn it into a
Yeah,
show. But it's like it is a really good way, a really good excuse to just like reach out to somebody and start chatting. So it's pretty cool.
yeah.
So what's growing up like for you? Where was that? What did that look like?
Well, I grew up in a very small town in Manitoba. So Mauvill is where I grew up. It's actually not even really a town. I think it's like classified as a hamlet. There's like six houses and so yeah, I grew
Typical
up.
northern Canadian town. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I grew up with I guess so the kids in Mauvill, or the Mauvill kids. Um all very all different ages. So, I was one of the youngest ones there. So, you tend to you just get up to a lot more when you're hanging out with the wider groups. What you do for fun in those small towns too is a lot different. So, but yeah,
What's
no,
the
I grew up.
purpose of this town?
Uh, I it was a bigger town, but a fire went through. I forget what year. But yeah, it was a larger town, and then a fire went through, and now it's just like the only just some families that live there. Kind of everyone. You don't go to. There's no school there. You go to the towns over for school and that. So,
What was that distance like?
well, that's where I am right now. I'm in the town that I went to school in was Ericsville, so it's about 10 minutes away. So they're not too far, but yeah, growing up as a younger kid, you tend to stay in your small town until you start wheeling and around and that. But
What did your folks do?
well, so my father, he's in the trade. Um, he's working. Well, he's home right now, but he was just up in Fort McMurray there. My mother's in home care, and that's kind of been her career path. But yeah, my father's been in Powerline for quite some time. That's how I got in. That's how I got started was he took me out to work one time when I was 14, and then kind of we were doing footings and that, and yeah, then after when uh when I was about 16, I ended up getting back in. Um wasn't working with him though when I got back in. I was doing some underground street lighting and some substation stuff, but yeah.
Is it something that you always wanted to do?
Uh, Powerline. So when I was a kid, um, I didn't always want to do Powerline. I knew I wanted to work in trades. I was actually kind of looking at like when I was in high school, I was actually looking at welding, and then once I kind of got doing the work, I was just once you get in the air and you're doing the work, then you're sold, right? So um, yeah.
For me, it was like because I grew up around it as well. never ever really wanted to do it for some reason. Like, and I grew up, like, when I say I grew up around it, like, I grew up around it. We had linemen living with us. I would, like, after school, that's the job I had all the time, was just like around the shop, but stocking bolts and stocking bucket trucks and painting trailers, sweeping floors, organizing mechanics tools. um, but it was never like, it was never even something that crossed my mind as a kid, like, till after high school. It was, the world seemed really, really big, and just spent so much time around it that I was like, no, this is not for me. Until, like, it just took that one person to kind of like pull me aside and go, damn it, kid, like, do you understand the opportunity that you have? Your father owns a Powerline company. You're 20 years old. You could get into the trade like right now, and then you're 24 with a trade ticket, and then go do whatever the hell else you want to do. It's just funny, like, some people
Yeah.
grow up around it and never want it, and then other people grow up around it and it's like the thing that they always wanted. I'm curious,
I
like, what that is, like, what makes you
I
choose that.
I think it's like I thought about that too, and I think it's almost like a pride thing. Like I know growing up, so even when I first got into doing the work, um, it's the pride of just making your own path and your own, your own footsteps. And I think sometimes we think like, well, if you do the same thing, you're not really making your own path, but that's not true because like, just because you're in the path of, say, a power line doesn't mean you're making the same path. Like, I know me and my father, like, with our careers, we have a fair different kind of path, just the stuff we do and the things we do. So, I think that might be some of it.
I
But,
think you're 100% on with that. Did you work with your father as you came into the trade? Like, were you working with him, under him, around him?
when I was, so when he took me out when I was 14, yeah, I was working directly with him and that. But when I got back in, like when I was 16, um, I wasn't working with him. It was for the same company, but he was on a transmission project, and then I was up in the oil sands doing substation street lighting that. So I wasn't actually working with him not until it would have been around a year or so, being in until I actually started working with him and the crews that he worked with in transmission. Um, but yeah,
Did you ever find that then you had like big boots to fill coming up behind your old man? Like, there was a reputation set or an expectation set on you, and you kind of like had to fill those boots.
oh yeah, yeah. There was he definitely with a lot of the guys around Canada and in the transmission, he's pretty well known. Um, so there definitely was some of that. Uh, yeah, it's
How did you what was your like views on that, or how did you deal with that? Was it just like it was no big deal to you? Just kind of, we're proud of
no,
you.
not really. Yeah, like I was more like, well, I was the lineman, so I was always, just kind of focused on my work, doing the best I could. And um, I think the peers, like the people you're working with, I found it was always it was very competitive through my career. And so you were kind of more focused on just doing a good job, and trying to get better at it. So that's where you make your own path,
Yeah.
is when you're that focused and you start kind of going off. So,
I remember my father, he was toiling with whether he wanted to sell his company or not. Small power line company. He had an opportunity, an offer, and he came to talk to my brother and I was a lineman at this point, and he was like, cancel cancel everything right now, and if you want the business, if you want the company, you know, we'll make this happen. We'll cancel the sale, and you guys can take it from here. And my cousin was involved with that too, because my cousin was a lineman, and I was just like, you know what? Don't, I don't want the business side. A different mentality now. I would jump at that. Like this me,
Mhm.
40-year-old me would want that now, but like 26-year-old me was like, heck no, I got this bucket list of things in the trade that I want to check off, and I'm going after that. And if you sell to this bigger company, that's just going to mean it's going to open the doors for all the opportunities for me to do all these things. And I think that was like a big decision though, with like separating myself from my old man, because he really he really had a stronghold in BC. You're not like stronghold, but like a big presence. Like there were big boots. If I was going to try to like fill Robin's boots in BC, he
Yeah.
was involved with so much, like um, the line contractors association, like getting all the contractors together in BC and like making them work more as a team. Then he was heavily involved with apprenticeship. He, had this big company. He was big boots to fill. And I was like, no, I'm going to go do other things. And I'm really glad I did that. And I made my own, made my mark, start the podcast, like make your own mark in your own way. And it's all worked out. So it's funny. It's kind of cool how that happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'd say you're definitely making a mark and, a positive influence in the industry for sure.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Um,
It's,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to, it's a lot different now too. Like, there's so many avenues that, for influence on people and just, their mentality and the culture of the industry. There's so many more avenues now that, this is huge, like, what you're doing, and, hopefully it's making waves to other areas and that, but oh, it's amazing.
I found the biggest impact to be so far in young people like finding the trade. You say young people, there's been quite a few like mid to late 30s, like I've helped get into the industry, the trade as well. But for the most part, like that young people, it's very rewarding to help people find a career path that suits them. Like um school, like I talk high school or just like elementary school sucked for me.
Mm.
It was really I often question how I even got through. I was like a C D student at best. Um, so to think like coming out of school that I would actually go on to another school, I don't know what I was thinking in that way. Like that's why the trades just really fit for me in it. Um, I've had a lot of people say like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're just bringing dumb people into the trades." I mean, no, that's not the case. It's just like school doesn't fit for everybody, and
Yeah.
the trades worked for me. It worked really well for me. It was, you got to have a sense of athleticism. Yes, you got to be intelligent, but that just means problem solving. It doesn't mean like you have to
Mhm.
be a math wizard to figure out
Yeah.
line work or any other trade for that matter. So anyway, the most rewarding part for me has been helping people like me that school wasn't the right thing, university, they tried the college, or just didn't even consider that because it wasn't working. And they really had no other direction. And I helped them find a way into this industry and they're thriving in it. That's been just the coolest part now to see.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that main, like out of the trades too, like whenever people talk about trades, and I think especially in coming out of school, um, like high school now, when you talk about a trade, you generally think of like carpentry, plumbing, welding. You think about those, and a lot of people don't really think about like, oh, well, power line. And that was one thing I found kind of growing up was because I got into it young, and then say like if I was ever out, I'll just say like in a club or something, and you're talking to
Yeah.
people, and you say, yeah, you're a lineman. And then it's like, oh, well, what's that? It's like, well, we build power line. And then they kind of look at you funny, and they're like, okay, so like, and they always say, depending where you are, it's the local utility. They ask if you work for them. They're like, oh, you work for, say, Manitoba Hydro or BC Hydro. And then, then you get into explaining, no, we kind of work all over Canada and this and that. And but yeah, it's not like the other trades as far as people out there being aware of it. So stuff like this, yeah, because a lot of people, they don't even know what to think. Like, oh, be a power lineman. Well, then this is where like these sources and that can help so much on what it actually is and what to be prepared for. So
100%. I think the recognition of our industry and our trade it's increased in one way, especially in the United States through our storm efforts and our storm restoration efforts. But unfortunately, some of that isn't the best representation of what we do. A lot of it is, but then, you get you get a lot of things happening. You get a lot of different sorts of people merging in one area. Let's put it that way. When something
yeah, oh
happens,
yeah,
you get like a lot of different kind of publicity come out of that. Um, but I agree with like even said it to somebody the other day. I think it was a guy I work out with who trains me. He was kind of asking like, what is it that you do? Yeah, you know, I was a lineman and this is what I'm doing now, but I was a lineman and worked on, he's like, what is that? Like power lines, man. Like I build, maintain the infrastructure, the power
yeah,
system. And he's just like, oh, okay. Like, well, like, where did you think it all came from? I don't know. There's people out there
yeah,
working on this stuff. But you're right. You're 100% right. Like the awareness of what we do is still like, it's very small. Very few people are aware of that. There's a group of trades workers out there building and maintaining this infrastructure. Um, yeah, it's pretty cool.
uh-huh.
Have you found that like through your platforms as well? Like, uh, people reaching out to you, you been able to help
Uh,
get in the trade and that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. I have. It kind of comes in waves. I find like sometimes you'll be getting a lot of contact, and then and I I give the input what I can, and then I refer them to like yourself, and like tell them to listen to podcasts, and try to give out the sources there to really figure it out. But yeah, no, it definitely comes in waves when people are reaching out and that. And yeah, it's all kinds of different kind of questions too. Like my favorite ones are just kind of the one when people, I guess, want advice, or like, I guess it sounds bad, but if they're having a hard time, and then you can give them some good advice to, like, this, sometimes stuff is hard, when you're dealing with your career. I think a lot of younger people, everyone wants to move really fast and move up really fast. And, sometimes you got to tough it out. You might be on a job where you got to tough it out for that job, and the next job's not going to be the same. So, it'll build more character or your name, I guess, because I find our name's a very big thing in the industry. Just your name and what your name carries. So, that's always something to mention, stick it out. And unless you're depending, right, on what this is fully, but
Yeah, I tell people quite a bit that exact thing. Like your name and reputation show up on a job site long before you even get there. So yeah, try to make sure that it's a good one because you can rest assured it's getting there before you are.
yeah.
It might even mean the difference between whether you even have work or don't have work,
Oh, yeah.
and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask. Oh, the one thing I've seen out in the social media realm that it kind of disappoints me, or maybe there's just like there's a gap there. There's a gap missing, and there's a place for this. Is more teaching the actual like skills of the trade. I feel like linemen, for one, they don't want to get on social media unless they're making like a goofy TikTok or look at what I've done kind of Instagram post or TikTok, or here's me flying under a helicopter or whatever. But like more educational and informative. And there's so many smart people out there Um, I wish that these people would get a little more active on social and help a few more people. It's tough because I think that they're like, well, I don't know how to build this big audience, and then I don't know how to monetize that or whatever. Or they just plain don't want to get into answering questions. But like, there's a space for that because there's really very few people doing that out there, like actually educating and helping people work through complex problems,
Yeah.
system problems, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know like Live Wire Blue Collar Blueprint, they were doing, but they more of the videos that I seen was their, like they were doing knots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can find that on the internet, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, if you got into more of the actual or more in depth into our trade on educational videos, and yeah.
There's a few guys I've had on the show in the past, like Dave Fossa, Brady Hansen. Like their whole job is educate. They work for companies and they train people, like, and educate people. And they're like that go-to guy within the company that if you have like a transformation problem or like whatever, a grounding issue, they're the guy that those people call. So their whole day is fielding phone calls basically from the operating unit and just like helping people solve problems. I wish some of that content could get online because there's a space for it, and I think that people. And the other side of it as well is people are so harsh social,
Oh yeah.
just so harsh. Like I'm I'm getting almost burned out to it. It's just
Yeah.
like everyone's got this opinion, and it's just I should just take Joe Rogan's advice and like not read comments. But it's even other people's the comments within other people's posts that are just like, man, buddy, come on. What do you
Yeah.
where are you going with this? I don't know,
It
it's harsh.
Yeah, it's crazy there, and it's almost. I was on a clip or whatever, and then there was some comments like, where does it come from? Like, people just started. Oh, they started going on about like, almost like a personal attack, like, oh, that about like, my wife's probably getting banged at home while I'm working and that. It's like, holy crap! Like, it's pretty funny that like that all that comes out, like, that there's all these people just ready, and it is what it is, that's something that, like, it doesn't bother me. I kind of think it's funny when you see all this stuff popping up and it's like, holy crap, these guys are savages. Like,
Yeah,
it's
they are savages. It's crazy.
uh
Like it's very small minded as well. Like I almost feel bad for them because a lot of the times they're so narrow minded in their experience or just like narrow in their even experiences themselves. They'll talk oh, there's not enough cover there, or there's not enough this or that, or I'm like, yeah, buddy, but you're talking about like South Georgia or something. like these people are
yeah.
from northern BC. Like it's completely different in different
Oh
areas. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, how come they don't have their gloves on? And I was like, they don't have to wear gloves in that area. That's like legal rules. Like it's fine, you know. And they'll go off about it. Oh, because that's your opinion. That's your experience, and there's one small little niche area that you work at. Like there's a whole world out there.
Yeah. Yeah, you get on any of those, a lot, well, shouldn't say any, but yeah, pretty much any of those posts, and there'll be some positive and then there'll be a ton of negative, and it's just, I don't know why.
It's crazy. What what's been like the most kind of biggest area that you've worked in so far as transmission, distribution, substation, and what do you enjoyed the most?
Uh, well, so my career is mainly transmission. So through my apprenticeship, I did a little bit of everything, underground, distro, substation, but mainly transmission. Um, but one thing so I forget how old I was. It probably would have been, I don't know, 20 or 21. And I read a book, I think it was called Strength Finder. And then it was just about, like kind of sticking with your strengths because as a lineman, you always have, it's a big trade. There's lots to do in it, right? Like
Yeah.
you can, you
Chase the
know,
shiny object for sure.
yeah. So that's kind of what I decided. I was just like, well, I'm excelled in transmission and I'm doing really good. So, it made sense. Like stick to transmission and, you know, do something that you're doing really well at. Or, and not saying like you shouldn't, there's always that choice to, try to do everything in the trade. And then you say like, well, yeah, I've done absolutely everything, or you're good at maybe not everything, but, you can say you can do everything with confidence, or you can, look out for yourself, I guess, and, do what's going to benefit yourself as maybe not so much your career, but in life, right? So, and that's kind of what I did. I followed and it's treated me well. I was a journeyman at a very young age. I was 20 actually when I got my ticket, and then shortly after turned 21. So, and then through my career, it's, I've went from a lineman to a foreman, supervisor, and that. Currently working as a construction manager, and it's opened doors for me too. Like I was a part ownership of a company that did very well, and we ended up selling type thing. So it's and that's just something like this trade has to offer. There's so many doors and so many routes you can go. And now I'm back at working as CM, but I'm there's locked and peg, like I'm doing that as well, and trying to get into some other stuff too. Um, but yeah, it's crazy how many doors there are and how many hallways in this trade to go through. So
I love that you said that. It's so true. And I love pointing it out because even something like transmission, like you can niche right down in that as well and become really, really, really great at dead ends.
yeah,
Really, really great at whatever side of the string insight setup you are, or what a clipping or whatever. And
mhm,
so it's really cool how to like you can turn that dial. You can pick something, go a direction, and just get specialized in that. You
yeah,
you can pick transmission overall, and that's a big bucket, or you can get right
mhm,
narrow on it too if you want, and do that for a while. It keeps it like interesting, I find.
yeah,
And that's what's really neat about this trade. It's not just going to a desk every day and doing crunching your numbers or whatever, and it's the same thing every day, and you can't really niche down from there or change or turn that dial. And line works really cool that way. The
yeah,
financial dial and the interest dial.
yeah.
Yeah. You want
And you do need those specialized people, like, that's what really, when you get on a job and you do have those people that are, like you say, specialized in dead ending or specialized in the tension site, or, whatever. When you have a group of people that are specialized in what they do, that's when things go like smooth, safely, and quality of life's good. Everyone's happy at work. Like it's really good when
that's
that
what you're
happens.
trying to build as a leader too. Like you especially notice that when you're the foreman, construction manager,
Yeah,
project manager. It's like, okay, who's my dead end team? Who are these
yeah,
people? What's their experience? Like I need to know. Then that's gonna determine the productivity out of it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's really cool. Any other aspects of the trade that have like interested you recently or even in the past that you're like, I'd like to explore that more, or are you just like loving the transmission side of things?
Uh, well, lately that storm's been every time there's a call, I'm like, oh, and it's just the timing thing. So, definitely want to go experience that. Um, I do like really like working down on the state side. Just just the culture and the people and the freedom in the air, I guess.
What's your experience with the US so far?
So far with the US, I went down, so I've looked at jobs down there, just like scouted them out for planning and that and bidding. But I went on. We were restored some H line, and it was down in Nebraska. So I was down there doing that for a few months, and then it's pretty much it as far as building line. But
Interesting. And you enjoyed that, or
yep, oh yeah, yeah.
Nebraska? Can't say I've been to Nebraska yet. I have like a seven state tour coming up here for January. It's gonna be a it's gonna be a push, but yeah, I've knocked off quite a few of the states so far. I think I only have like 10 or so left to hit, which is kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah.
But I have to make a little tour around the U.S. coming up shortly, so I'm gonna take a few more of those off.
Huh.
I love it down there. I really do. I think I would probably be there, to be honest, if I didn't have a family here and all the things, responsibilities in Canada. I could see myself in the U.S. I really enjoy it down there. I think people
Yeah.
overlook that quite often. Canadians overlook it, overlook how amazing it can be.
Mm-hmm.
They get their narrow-minded opinions again, just in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, and I'd say like recently too, I know you follow Semi Bolt there. Been dipping into that a bit. I've been trying to find time for that, but it's kind of on the mental health side of things. And because you see it a lot in the trade, like kind of throughout, whether you're aware of it, you sometimes you're not aware of like I guess the situations and the issues starting out until you start, really seeing it. And yeah, so I've been kind of getting into that a little bit when I get time.
Where does
Um,
this
and
where does it come from?
like where,
Why an interest in mental health for yourself personally?
uh, well, I've had, I don't know how long, but in this last 5 years, like whether it's, I think it all stems from mental health, but I've lost some very close friends in the trade, outside of the trade, but and a lot of people that I work with. I shouldn't say a lot, but just one's too many, but too many close friends that you know lost due to mental health, some substance abuse, which I think believe stems from mental health. So yeah, that's kind of where it was an idea, and then there was 1 year I was like, no, I'm doing it, getting it started type thing. So
I definitely
I
think
think
it's a good thing to raise awareness of. Um, I've noticed it so much too, just like going through 20 years of being in this industry, just like myself, and then also seeing that my entire childhood saw so many linemen, different linemen, come through. Um, we got to see linemen in a different light as well. Like my dad owning a company, and it was a small company in a small BC town. It's hard to the 80s and 90s. It's hard to pay people per diems. Like, so we often had people stay at our home. It was like, you know, my mom worked with my dad in the company, and then she would come home and make meals and beds and take care of linemen at our house. They would stay with us for months on end, and really got to see like a good majority of linemen, like even from then, like from that day and era, like it was very rare that a lineman wasn't struggling with a mental health problem back then
Mhm.
and a substance abuse problem. Definitely. I had it in our family as well. A close family friend, considered him a second dad. I was young, but I considered him a second dad. A very close friend of my father's, lineman, commit suicide. Um, like it's such a prevalent thing in our industry. Not just the suicide part, but like just struggling with keeping it together. Like it's such a stressful and demanding industry to work in, and people don't quite realize that. They see a lot of like the trades that you'd mentioned, like carpentry and all that. Those people quite often, like those trades, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, they can stay home. Like they work out of their local area for the most part, unless you're traveling. Um, but they work out of their local area and they get to be home every night. And I'm not saying that they don't deal with their own, Lord knows they deal with their own mental health issues as well. But like the difference between their industry and ours is um, quite often spending 30 days at a time on the road in really harsh environments, like middle of winter in Conklin, Alberta, for 2 months straight. I did that. I stayed in
Yeah.
Conklin. I had to sleep in 3 layers of clothes in a sleeping bag on a cot, just to try to stay warm and where you're sleeping. You're eating shit food, like
Yeah.
people that are getting down. Like it's hard to keep your spirits up. It's hard to keep a positive
Oh,
mentality, right? I don't know. So what are some things that you've done just for yourself personally to like get through that stuff? Or advice you could give on that? Things you've done.
uh, well, I thought about like, yeah, advice. So like, I've obviously had my own, say, struggles or challenges. Um, and fortunately, well, when you kind of realize, a lot of times you're in that state or state of mind and you don't really realize it until you're out of it. And then, that's where you become a little more aware of your situations as they're happening. Um, so I think just some advice, like, for people on the road, and you see it all the time, like guys, especially for young guys growing up there, we all have mentors, right? Whether they're good or bad, they're always, say, apprentices or new guys coming in, they're always looking up to someone. So, I think it's pretty important who you choose who those mentors are. And, your mentor might be really good at work, but a lot of times you got to look at the outside of the work and the after the work thing, because those are kind of the paths you're going to follow. So, I think picking your mentors and, really thinking about where you want to go, and because that's going to really affect you down the road is just like, your, trying to find the word here, just like your habits,
Yeah.
say like the habits you're leading and your tendencies. So, um, I'd say that, and like, working on your moral compass too. Like, anytime that I found when I was kind of going through a rough time, it was, my moral compass was a little skewed, and you end up, say, hanging out with the wrong people, or, and that's, all based off those, simple decisions. Look at your moral compass and be like, actually, no, I probably shouldn't do that, or, yeah, it's, I'd say if you focus on just your morals and, your mentors, that'll help a lot, especially for when you're getting into it, like into the trade and it's all new, right?
If I could add to that, it's like it's mentors and it's even just like peers. It's like choosing the 5 people that you most want to be like and hang around those people. Don't you know? Don't always just pick the lighthearted, funny guy. that's got everyone's attention at the chow hall, or whatever, like, because that guy's probably going through some shit himself. I've seen it so many times where, look, those are the people you want to hang around, right? They're funny. They're, it was a good time to be around, but I feel they hide a lot of their own issues, behind humor, behind, drinking at the bar, whatever it is. And it's like, is that who you want to be, really? Like, is that what you're striving to be? Or are they going to make you better? So it's like making yourself better, or choosing to make yourself better each and every day. Is this person adding to that or subtracting to that? You know?
Mhm.
And it's not saying don't like communicate with that person, because they, you know, maybe they're great people and they're cool to be around, and sure, they're your friends. But like, I'm talking that 80-20 percentage of time. Are you going to
Yeah.
hang around them 80% of the time, 20% of the time? Choose the 20. Choose the 80% to be somebody that is, uplifting, has some goals, some ambition,
Hmm.
is maybe starting a business back home as well. Talking about things that are different, a hobby
Yeah.
that you're really super into, like bow hunting, photography, or something. And spend some time around those people might help that mental health, like, because it gives you something else to like do. It's not,
Yeah.
something else to focus on.
That and that it does go hand in hand too. Like like say if you're looking for your peers or your mentors to kind of follow or hang around, well, that also goes both ways. So, the guys that are out there that are, say, the leaders or the mentors or the journeymen, right? Like a lot of these guys, you got to realize that those apprentices and those new guys, they're watching you. You're on, whether you want to be on a platform or not, they're watching you. Like, you see it all the time, guys. Guys will pick someone that they want to work with, and that's who they're following. So if you're one of those guys, or you notice, you know, lead good examples. Like, it's like we're basically all out there. We're all out there with each other, and we're all influencing each other. Is how it is, whether it's good or bad, or it's a handoff in every way type thing. So
Pick some people from outside your genre as well. Like, pick and a mentor can be somebody you've met and somebody you've never met. It can be somebody that's alive still, or somebody from the past.
yeah,
It can really be anybody who's made enough content, whether that be a book or social media, to like, you know, invest in and help yourself. And pick somebody from another genre. Pick a genre that you like. Pick something like, whether it's a hobby and you're like, okay, like, I really want to get into archery. I really want to be a bow hunter. Something I've always wanted to do, and I got to put the time and effort into it. And I haven't yet, but I started following guys like Cam Haynes, and
uh-huh.
super no bullshit, super positive, very motivational. Like, you can go to any of his channels and you're instantly like, shit, I'm not doing enough to be better.
Yeah,
Like, um, it's picking that and trying to get yourself out of your rut through helping follow guys
yeah,
like that. I don't know. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Another thing too is like just self development. I think, like, just focusing on, like you said earlier, about being a better you every day. Well, that's one thing that I found I was doing at a younger age. Um, I got into self development books, and just I thought, I don't know if I was narrow minded before. I probably wasn't, but just once I kind of got into them, I'm like, wow, when you realize you can better yourself, and there's like all these resources out there to review and to learn from, um it's you feel good about yourself. And those it's a lot of little things like that. I think that they might not save your mental health, or like but they're definitely gonna help. So all those little things, like just improving on yourself. That stuff does help you when you're through life, I guess.
What are some things that you've done yourself? Like speaking of that, is there something like a hobby or something like working out or like what's like helped you? Yeah.
Yeah, working out. I think having a balance is a big thing. Um, that's when when you realize like, yeah, there is a balance of your life, and that does affect your mental health, whether, it's your family, your work, your uh, exercising, or your physical health, or your mental health. You got to take time. I guess that's one big thing I learned is you got to take time for all those things, but you can't leave them out because that's when you'll kind of fall off the wagon, I guess. But if you balance those, and we do get lost. Like I used to get lost in the work all the time, be so work driven, focused on work, and I've seen it in my past. That's when your other stuff starts to fall off. You either lose a relationship or and I think that's where a lot of our challenges are, especially when you get into starting your career, or if you're in management. It's all really, I think we get focused on our work so much, and then we start to drop off and on in the other areas. And when we get focused in the other areas, well, then our work starts to drop off. So it is a balance, and just focus on being aware of the situations that you're in and trying to keep that balance.
It's a really good point because that's part of our job that's that that adds to the mental health stress or that mental stress is the job itself and how demanding it is in the way that of time. Like the job takes all of our time. It can, especially like transmission jobs. You're sun up to sundown, if not extended into those early hours or late hours. 14-hour days, and
Oh, yeah.
exhausted. Like when you're working outside, everyone knows what it's like just to be outside in fresh air for the day and how exhausted you can be. Now, add like pretty physical labor to that and cold weather and just like everything you deal with, mental stress, like it takes a lot of your time. And I've noticed like that was always something I struggled with too, is like, I got no time for anything else. This job is my life, and it just becomes your life. And if you let it do that, like if you chase that job, if you chase that work, if you chase that money, and you're constantly like, this transmission job ends and you've already got the next one lined up that you're jumping into, and that's just life now, is rolling through transmission jobs, and you're not doing anything else. You're going home and you're buying stuff. You bought this really great pickup truck that sits in your driveway and you never use. You got this boat that you never use, this travel trailer you never use, except for when you're on the road working in it in the summer. It's
Yeah.
it sucks. Like you got to give yourself time.
And that, just on that topic there, that's another, just our finances and that. Like, you're just saying that how, you work, you get all these things. Well, a lot of times that it's huge on mental health. You see it a lot, guys working, and they're there damn near 365 days of the year. They're working, they got everything, but say there's no money in the bank or whatever, or they're worried about taking time off. Well, you need that time off. Like, that's something that I think in the industry, there's like that other area that you're talking about with the educational videos. I've thought about this for a bit now too, is almost like financing, or just like helping tradesmen figure out a personal budget and, savings and that, because that's a huge part of affects your mental health when you're always worrying about that, and
Yeah.
it's just something that needs to be a little more, people need to educate themselves a little more. That's where, self-development and learning about finances and anything like that can help your mental health down the road.
You're 100% right. When you get into this trade, and a lot of people unfortunately find this trade because they hear that you can make a lot of money, but they don't actually realize that how much that is and how fast it can come when you get into it. You get into this trade as a young person with none of this background, and boom, you're making big dollars now, making big bucks, and you're spending it as fast as you. Now I have access to adult money now, and I can buy stuff. Now you're buying trucks, look at whatever you want to buy. Sure, go ahead and do it. It's not gonna make you happy, for starters. Like, that stuff doesn't create happiness. That's step one. Step two is figure your shit out. Like you said, invest in some self-help, whatever you want to call it, but some financial planning. Like, if there's nobody in the trade that's speaking about it, go outside of the trade and find the people that are doing it right and talking about real things. Like, like Alex Ramosi, or, like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's an old ass book, but there can be so much learning and growth out of like something like reading Rich Dad Poor Dad is as relevant today as it was when it was written 20 years ago or 30 years ago, whenever it was written. It's an old ass book.
Yeah.
And then don't explore what works for you as well. And the reason I say this is you'll get advice from people. People love to tell you what to do based off of their own experiences. And that's part of the social media thing, right? Like, through my own experience, this is the best way to do something. It's no, it's not the best way to do something, because I'm me and my life is different. My situation is different. My experiences are different. So if somebody's telling you that it's a debt-based system, you should just buy all this stuff and live off of debt, and when it's gone, whatever. Okay, that works for you. That works for you. But what might work for you and might work for your mental health is paying everything off. Maybe doing that stupid thing, in quotations, of paying your house off completely. Maybe that's the right thing for you, because maybe that wear and tear on your mental health, that stress about having that payment, is worth more than not having that payment.
Yeah.
That makes sense, And maybe just clearing that debt and going, okay, my house is paid off. Maybe it's not the best financial decision in the world, because maybe that big block of money could be used for many other things and many other investments. But if it helps clear your mind, and you know now that, you know what, I don't have to take that next job right away. I can sit back for 2 months. I can hang out with my family because this big payment is made. This house is paid off. Maybe that's, going to help with that mental game much more than the other. So just pick what works for you.
Yeah.
What I'm getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Experiences with that. So you've labeled a couple of things, a couple hobbies, financial stuff. Is there advice you have on that side of things? What's worked for you, say, that you could say, okay, this is what's worked for me. I'm not telling you to do this, but this is the side that's worked for me.
As far as finance.
Sure, the financial side.
Financial side.
As a tradesman, what's worked for you on the financial side? What's been the thing that's helped you make you successful?
Well, I would say I'm kind of into a lot of things currently, but I would just say always having that rainy day fund. That takes a lot of stress, and it just leaves you more, I guess, not vulnerable to just work stresses of if the job ends, or say, jobs get shut down randomly too, over, it could be material quality issues, safety, weather, whatever, right? So, that rainy day fund, I would say, is huge for that. Put it away and don't touch it.
How do you determine the size of that rainy day fund?
So the methods that are described, I would say with us, it's some people say, 6 months of income, but that's a fairly large amount, depending what you're doing. Depending what you want to be prepared for, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, just do your bills. So like whatever your steady bills are, and include your grocery and whatever else, your insurances, your mortgage, whatever. Whether you want 3 months or 6 months. Um, yeah, just have that saved up and put away. That helps a lot. There's always less stressors there when you're good for 6 months if something happened, right? So
That's a good number. Actually, that's probably safe because look at the period of time we just went through. You know, I'd say you were laughing. You were able to like recover and get back into the workforce or whatever if you had 6 months of savings during like when COVID first started. Something like that. That's a very drastic, most extreme measure, but these things happen. It's only like one lifetime away that it was the Great Recession. Like it's
yeah,
not very far removed. That was like my grandparents went through that. And
yeah,
we gone through something like COVID. So yeah, it's like a really great point. Like have some funds set aside and ready to go. And I was able to do that when COVID started. And I was able to like just peel back and stay home with my kids and make sure things were right and they were safe and everyone was good. And that is a big, like, you don't have to stress about losing everything. And man, like, that's half the mental battle there. Like,
oh
yeah, I think you can deal with whatever else gets thrown at you, realistically, if you don't have to stress about that.
yeah.
Where the
It keeps that balance in check there. If you didn't have that in that situation, well, you would have just added on more stresses on everything, and it affects your relationship with your kids even when you're stressed. When dad's stressed out, he's probably might be a little more snappy or whatever. So yeah, it affects everything. Everything's a balance there. So
I remember being like that, coming home from big jobs, just being there was a transition period. There was almost like a re-entry period into coming home. If you were gone on the road for 35 days straight and then you come home for 6 days, there was always like a 1 or 2 day period where you're tired. All you've been doing is hanging out with linemen for 30 days straight. Like your views and perspective on the world is not like what it needs to be for home life. And there was
oh
this
yeah,
trend, like I was just a bear. I come home like snappy, miserable, like hard to fall into routine. But that's hard too. Like that's the thing with our job and our trade. Like all of these things keep filling this bucket, and pretty soon your bucket just overflows, and it manifests in different ways. Manifests
that's
in drinking, lashing out, or just like detaching from your family or whatever. However it manifests, it's not good. It's not healthy.
that what you just said there too is your routine. So that's another huge one I found that helps me is just buckle down a routine. It's your wake up times, your morning routine, go to work obviously for say 12 hours of the day, and then get back into your routine. um but I find that helps with stress, and even drawing out a schedule. I've done that before where I was kind of going through say a very stressful time, or dealing with a lot at the time. I would write out my schedule, wake up, say like breakfast or quick exercise, and then go to work. And then right when I would get in, I would focus on, say like lock and tag. And then, I'd eat, and then I would focus on, say, like me time, or whether it's either reading a book or listening to a podcast, something that you enjoy. And then, block out for, call a friend or something, and, or talk to someone, and try to balance it that way. That was and we will stray from it too. You might get a good routine and then you go to a different job and then it's like, oh, that routine was out the window because you were traveling for 2 days and, you had to eat out and you're doing all this other stuff. And then, just being aware, oh yeah, get back into your routine there, so those that I find helps big especially when you're on the road, try to get that routine in and create the balance through your routine.
I would always try to find somebody when I was on the road. I'd try to find when I became a foreman. I was on the road. It was a little easier because I could almost plan or help, plan who you had around you, which was cool. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely people that you could bring on the job that you bonded with or you were good friends with, and that were like those kind of uplifting people. I always had a few of those around me, and I really, really enjoyed being with those people. And I would always try to have a few, like a group if I could, or at least one that was going to the gym and that was committed to like making that part of the routine of being on the road. And it just helped keep you out of trouble at the bar.
Mhm.
You definitely had like, okay, we're going to have our cheat day or whatever. It's a weather day tomorrow. We're going to sit here for a while and have some fun. But that's part of like blowing off steam too. And that's neat.
Yeah.
But it's when that turns into every day, it's a problem. And so I tried to like have somebody around me that was like, you know, I was going to help them by being positive when I could that day. And if I was having a down day, that person hopefully was having an up day and could be like, hey, snap out of it. Come on. Like, we're going to go, we'll get through this day. It's shitty outside. It's cold. We'll get back to the room. We'll have a snack or something. And then we'll hit the gym, like we'll have some laughs. We'll go to the gym. We'll blow it off there. And that really helped me get through a lot of like, you just feel better about yourself. You didn't spend shitloads of money at the bar. You're not like groggy and shitty the next day. You're actually like, you got that DOMS feeling. You're feeling like kind of sore and tired, but it's like a good sore and tired because
Yeah.
you worked out the day before. I don't know. I enjoyed that, and I found like that really helped me get through a lot of things that I had to work through. Was like finding people to hang around like that, and committing to that, going to the gym, that schedule. Build yourself a schedule, routine.
Yeah. I think kind of just how we are, like we're all kind of the same, like, linemen, we're all kind of the same. That is a huge one, is just our routines and influencing each other. Like that's where a lot of, I think, our health or mental health will come from, just our daily routines and, what we're doing in life, because we're just doing it. Like, we're going to go and just do it. As far as talking, we're like, we should talk to each other more, I guess, about say if we need something to talk about, but chances are what we're going through mentally is directly, affected by what our daily routines and everything is, whether, it's exercise or like too much drinking or, certain substances. Like that all has a huge effect on your mental health. So I think like what you're saying, surrounding yourselves with peers, or even being the peer that, like, oh, I got to smarten up a little bit, then maybe I'll try to get the boys to the gym and, create that positivity. But yeah, I think we're definitely affected mainly by our routines and that.
And there's some things that you are out of your control, and some things that you can't control. And those are things that you can control. You can't necessarily control, what your lady is doing back home, or what's going on with your family. Maybe there's a scenario with your kids, school, whatever it is. Like they're really, and you feel like, I know as a man, the only perspective I have to speak from is like, you're a provider, you're a protector. Like that's the way I always felt about myself. Like if you're removed from that, your physical location is somewhere different than your family's, and there's an issue going on back home, it's hard. That like weighs a lot on you because you can't be there for them. But just know like you're being there for them in a different way. You're still providing, like, and that's a big
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle. And yeah, but it's hard because it's again, it's pushing on that mental health button, and it's a difficult industry. It's a difficult trade to filter through all that stuff. Um,
Yeah. And I think too, it's big, like, you do have to hold yourself responsible for a lot. I would say this is kind of my take on it, and I'm no professional advisor or anything on this, but I think it's good to be aware of your situations. When stuff happens, you gotta understand what like your effect was in the situation, but don't beat yourself up over it. It's okay to hold yourself responsible, if say like for a relationship or something fell apart and say they were the bad person. Well, those feelings and that do come from somewhere, so you would have to hold yourself somewhat accountable, but not beat yourself up over it. And I think just understanding, you learn and move on, or you become more aware. Because being ignorant to situations doesn't help. That's when you get into repeat situations, right? And so I think that's a big part, is just trying to hold a bit of responsibility, but definitely don't beat yourself up over anything, because shit happens. That's like I've had a few talks with some buddies that were having, say, like a substance abuse issues, or they're back on the wagon, and then they generally, I try to just, like, you congratulate, like, oh, that, like, good job and that, but thing I try to make sure kind of gets through to them, if they do fall off the wagon, or say if you do fall off the wagon, you can always get back on the wagon, you know? So you gotta just learn, oh, well, why did I fall off? Well, a lot of times just saying no in general to a situation, or not putting yourself in a situation where you have to say no. So there's stuff like that that's, just learning from what happened, I guess. And
what's your experience with therapy? And
therapy, well, so with Semi-Bolt there, we actually joined it's she's probably gonna said the name wrong, but it's a little catharsis. Is that,
I think
am I saying it right?
I think so.
I'm my lineman, that's why I didn't become I think this stuff.
Right there with you.
But yeah, so kind of teamed up with that service, so it's like therapy to talk. I've used it, and it is good. Like, you get I don't know if you've ever used anything like it, but I found it's good to, you want an opinion, or you want to hear, because personally, if I have an issue, I don't really want to talk to my family about it, because those might not be doing anything wrong, right? I would rather hear someone say, oh, no, well, you should think about this, because, and get both sides. So I'd say they're good. They're definitely good to try out if you're, you're having any issues, or if you just want someone to talk. Say there's something that you're like, you might be in one hell of a situation that you're like, wow, I can't talk to anyone about this. We'll pick up that phone, give one of those services a try. It's no one's ever going to know what you're talking about, and they're probably going to give you advice, or some stuff to self-reflect on, and tips on how to manage your stress or your thoughts. So no, I think those services are very handy. I think that's one reason why, actually, one of the things I wanted Semi-Bolt was to be able to I guess create awareness on those services, so just people have that option, or know there's that option. Because before I actually use it, I would have never even thought that was around. Like, I wouldn't think I could just call someone and be like, hey, So yeah, it's awareness of those services and resources is huge.
I think
I would say give them
there's a big stigma. There was a like I have one experience uh, with therapy. It's just from when I was going through a separation, trying to do like the couples therapy thing, and it is not. It wasn't a positive experience. So I think that really it left a mark on me. But like I've come around recently um, to just looking at it from a different perspective and not taking such a negative uh, um, thoughts about it or from just that one experience. Like I think it can really help a lot of people. I don't think it can. I know it can really help a lot of people. It might take finding the right person to talk to. So like if you run into a scenario like mine where you've had an experience and it's been a negative one, maybe think about trying it again with somebody else until you find somebody that you really jive with and click with and that is challenging you and working with you and doing positive things for you. You have like more of a positive experience coming out of it because it can really help you work through some stuff. And there's a lot of people talking about it more and more these days. So there's that more and more awareness, which is really good. They're talking about that side of it. There's a really great kind of documentary just put on Netflix that I encourage anybody to go watch it. It was made by Jonah Hill called Stutz. It's about his therapist. It's just a very good docu-style, like just sit down, black and white even, talk about, it's all about his therapist. It's not even about Jonah Hill and his experiences. He just starts talking to his therapist, almost like reversing it. But it's just like, it sheds some light on what it can actually be like and how helpful it has been for so many people. So if you're struggling, just try not to have a negative opinion on therapy because it might actually be the thing that helps you. And there's lots of different types. So if one hasn't worked out for you, maybe look at a different type. That's all my experiences on it. It's not a lot. I haven't had this like crazy traumatic childhood or anything to try to work through a bunch of stuff. I just had the typical tradesman shit that I've had to work through in my life.
Yeah.
But I could see how it could be really positive.
And actually on that note too, like, it doesn't have to be anything like that. Like it doesn't have to be super dramatic. Like, I had one guy, referred him and, we actually, paid for one of his, or I think two of his, session with her, cause that's what I was doing at, Semi Bolt. We were with certain funding that I was getting. I was, using it for call-ins, like, for people to try, because a lot of people like say they're not up for it, or they might not want to spend, say, the $45 to try it. So that's what we were doing there. And yeah, he a lot of positive feedback, and then he was like, yeah, I'm booking another call. Like I think he was doing it like a weekly thing and that, and then sometimes I think what you do once you kind of get it figured out, might do it weekly, and then you just do it monthly after type thing. And sometimes it's just a fucker to check in, and
that's really good. That's a good thing you're doing. That's really cool that more people need to do that. This is good. Just more talking about it openly. We need to talk about. I've been talking about it a lot recently in podcasts. Just even bringing up the term mental health. It's like, again, not like I have this like crazy experience with it. I just want to help facilitate people, finding it, bring awareness, all this sort of stuff. I'd actually like to get some real experts on the show to like dive into some of these things and provide some real value that way. And but like I think we need to talk about it more. We need to talk about mental health as if we're talking about physical health, because they're both the same. It's just two different things, but it's the same, right? We talk about going to the gym all the time. We talk about exercising. I'm a runner, I'm a weightlifter, I'm a whatever. And we dive into that and how much of that helps our mental health. But like, what is mental health and what are some ways that you can exercise it? and do
Yeah,
do things for it, to help keep yourself sharp, keep yourself happy. 'Cause that's what it's all about, being happy.
it's almost a culture as a whole too. Like, if you're getting on, like we have a safety culture at work, right? So, and we have a safety programs and everything like that. You're getting to see more and more quality side of things in the field too. That's also can relate to a culture. And then environmental as well. That's kind of was always there, but not as much. But I think it is something that's almost got to be a culture of the industry to start recognizing it more. And like what we're doing today is a part of it and getting it more recognized. Whereas, and I'm not putting it on companies or anything like that, but, a lot of it comes from your workplace, how your, say, leaders are or how your employers are. And you go from different job to different job, and the mental health aspect of it changes from job to job. Like, so on this last job I was on, one of the guy or two of the guys went out, reached out to the gym and worked on getting getting a program for the guys with the company, because it was right around Christmas, and it was talks that we were having, in our safety talks, about mental health and this time of the year and that. And it is harder on a lot of other people, or a lot of people. So yeah, they reached out and they got gym membership deals for people who want to try it. And the guys, that do work out, they were offering, like, to help the guys out to get into it, so you're working out correctly. And so it's all a culture thing. Like when people start reaching out and making it a better place to work, that in general is kind of just a culture thing, I guess.
There's another thing at times I've had in my life is, you talk about that mentor, and I guess they're kind of like a mentor. You can also find people that do this for a living. It's almost like that life coach or business coach or whatever label you want to put on it. I know life coach is kind of like this, it's words you just kind of cringe at hearing, but the
Yeah.
point is like somebody that's holding you accountable to anything, whether it be like your business ideas, your goals, your dreams, like, whether you're working out, whether you're doing, it's that somebody that's almost like a therapist, but it's just like, it's that person you can offload your day
Mhm.
to and then keep you accountable. Like, hey, are you staying on track with your diet? Are you staying on track with your exercise? Are, like, hey, what are you doing with that business? Are you making steps towards a positive direction or a negative direction? What's going on? And then offer the right advice for that. Those people are out there. You can find them all over social media. So maybe something like that is also something to look into. Because it can really get you thinking about, you know, that you talk about like what to do with your money. Like a lot of times you work so incredibly hard, you come home and you spend all that money on that new shiny toy, whether it's a truck or a boat or whatever. But like maybe this person can help you look at ways to 10x that money in a different way by investing, or, something different, investing in a business. I don't know. Those people are out there too. They're all over the place. I don't have an exact recommendation right now, but I know they're out there. And
Mhm.
at times I've had that person in my life, and it's been really cool because they're super challenging. Like they ask you the right questions. Like, hey, what are you doing about this? And like you have to you have to respond. So for me, I always like to respond with like, I'm on top of it. I'm working on it, versus I haven't done anything about it. So
Yeah,
that accountability portion is kind of, I don't know,
that
check into that person.
that's actually, yeah, you bringing that up, because I've had that talk multiple times. Just like in the last while, that's one thing I have a hard time finding is a peer to like, because I'm into a lot, whether it's investing with businesses, and I'm actually working on a tool patent right now. But there's stuff like that, yeah, that it's hard to find peers that are into all that other stuff, right? So it's actually, I'm gonna, after we're done talking and that, I'm probably gonna go look up that some, try to
You
find
could
some
be a
resources.
business coach, right? Like a business coach can often
Yeah.
have a lot of that advice, and maybe that's the label that they put themselves under as a business coach. But they'll challenge you with those. Okay, like where are you at with this pattern? Like, have you worked on it this week?
Uh,
Like, what's holding you back? Like, I don't know. They really challenge you in asking the right questions to keep you moving forward or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Uh,
Uh, Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, we were talking about like, talking to people. Um, a lot of times too, so we have our peers, like, there's some stuff you can't talk. There's stuff that you deal with on the road you can't talk to your family about. Um, and that's, but that's where our peers are kind of, they're our sources to talk, like, dealt with the same, like we've dealt with the same issues. I'm sure me and you, I'm sure if we ever had to talk to each other about something to help each other through something, I'm sure we'd probably be able to give some pretty good advice. So I think guys got to remember that too. When a guy opens up, just think about your situation or his, that if you can help, well, give him some advice.
It's something that podcasting taught me is listening with intent. I still catch myself um, listening to respond versus listening with intent to listen. But that's something that podcasting has taught me is like listening is a skill. So if you find somebody that actually will listen to you talk, it's amazing how much you can get off your chest and how better you feel if you can find that person that can actually listen. So if you're that person that always listens and constantly listening and trying to formulate a response in your head to respond back, try a different approach to that. Try just sitting there and just listening and actually like pulling at the threads that person is. So if that person is talking to you, pick something that they're kind of like focusing on and ask them a further question about that without like responding with your answer. From my experience, this or that, just like keep asking them questions until they are done talking and just listen to all that. It's amazing where you can go with a conversation, and it's amazing how good you feel both directions about having a conversation like that. It's a totally different way to approach a conversation because, like I said, like 99% of the time, people are just like sitting there with trying to formulate a response and they're not comfortable with like silence. Just like if silence is the thing, just let silence be the thing. Like it's no big deal. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just normal conversation.
Yeah.
I've had you for an hour 20-ish. A couple more questions. And so we talked about safety a little bit. We talked about mental health, and I think mental health plays a big role in the safety of a crew even. And that's why I think that the companies especially are taking more awareness of the mental health of their employees because it's directly related to the safety of the crew. What are some other things you've noticed maybe within that safety realm within the industry that you like draw attention to?
The safety, like I was kind of talking before, I'd say like it's a cultural thing. Just building, and you see it through with different crews, and there's, yeah, it's you can go a lot of ways on this one. Like, I believe like tailboards. So, just this last while at the company I'm working for, like we really focus on the tailboards because, time and time again, like the tailboards, and it comes from experience, like our experienced, people that have been around, the older boys, like always say, like, it's always, the more you focus on that tailboard, the the more aware people are going to be of your hazards and that. And so we do all verbal tailboards, and everyone gets talking, and like they're all recorded, so it's all verbal recorded tailboards, and you get so much input from the whole crew on those, and it's it's I don't know, I think it works very well.
Interesting.
Another it's all, and they send them in, everyone sends them in, and it actually, we also do we adopted this from the States, or the state side is call them 2-minute step backs. I'm not sure if you've ever kind of dealt or
I get the idea, I think. To explain some more.
Yeah, it's basically you do your tailboard in the morning, right? You guys have your talk, go over all your hazards. Say I'll use an example, say you're pulling ropes with the dozer, you're stringing, okay? So you do your tailboard, everyone knows their duties and that. While you're pulling your ropes, you're threading towers, well, now you get up to, say, 138 line crossing. Boom, you do your 2-minute step back. You covered it in your tailboard, your crossing that you were going to get there, but now you're at the crossing. You do your 2-minute step back, say, okay, boys, get everyone in a huddle. You just go over everything, who's doing what, who's going where, who's pulling what, and that, and then it just resets everyone. Okay, everyone's back on the same page, and you go again. And then that's something that I found works really well. It gets everyone back in the game, and stuff like that. That's where, when we do repetitive stuff, that's where mind wanders. It's those things like that get you back aware, get you back engaged, and keeps your mind on the task. So
I like that. I like that approach. I like that approach to it. Like we implement that in the bare hand world just naturally, and it works really good in that world, because if there's any little, we do it like when there's any little like change in the job, like if you've written out your procedure and you've had your tailboard tailgate, you've laid out the procedure and everyone's signed on to that process of doing that job. If there's any major changes in that job, everybody stops, everybody gets together, everybody, makes the change or makes that new plan. You document that, you sign on to that new plan, and then you go back to work. But I like that doesn't always work in like a distribution setting or a regular like transmission stringing setting or something. So I like that idea. Like when you get to making these milestones, these little points in time where you just take time to step back for a couple minutes, it gives everybody a break too. Like it's nice to have that break, just like, like that time out, that I'm just going to I'm going to go sit on the bench for 5 minutes. I need, I need fresh legs, and then get back into it. I like that approach to it.
Yeah. And it shows the guys too, like, that's where the culture part comes in. The culture's there where the leaders and that aren't just go, go, go. Oh, we got to get this done,
Sure.
People are taking their time to be like, okay, boys, let's talk about this, and it's growing the culture to the new generations, and it's getting them engaged and actually teaching them the process, where it's not just, okay, go and do it,
Interesting. I like it. Is there any books you're reading now, any podcasts you're listening to? What are you doing in your kind of like free time to better yourself?
Lately I've been, and that's where my balance is probably thrown off a bit lately, just with like Christmas and work and business and that. But my book I haven't got to read it, but it's I believe it's called Mastery. It's by same guy that wrote 42 Laws of Power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mastery.
Yeah.
What's the basis behind it? Have you got into it yet?
I started reading it a while ago, and then it ended up in my ear bag, and then, but it's basically about just mastery of anything. So it's about not moving too fast through anything, and actually taking the steps to master each step before you move on to the next, and getting the details in your work and that type of thing.
It's super interesting that you mentioned that. I just been listening to a few things. That's that same thing's come up like 3 or 4 times this last week for me, so I'm paying attention to that. Just in different ways, but I was listening to this one kind of like podcast or YouTube video, and the guy was saying that when he was younger, he used to do a lot of things, and he felt that that's what you had to do, is just do so many things and keep yourself so busy doing all of these things. In the end, you're going to be successful. And what he's learned now, being older, is that if you just take one thing and focus on that for a period of time and get that thing done, and like you say, master it, it ends up being so much better in the end. It's just like he's done that one thing really well versus 10 things kind of half-ass. That's come up a few times for me now this week. Interesting.
It's almost like Strength Finder almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then, of course, I think I got about 20 minutes left on your episode there, which I was listening to.
That's good, man. I
Yeah.
could talk to that guy forever.
Yeah.
I was trying to keep these podcasts to about an hour, but I just said, fuck it now. And I'm just like, I'm letting them run as long as they go. And that's just, if people want to stay listening to it, they can stay listening to it. If they don't want to listen to the end, that's their choice. But there's just so much value from having these long conversations and not just trying to stuff the whole conversation into 45 minutes or something. I was getting a little bit of pushback from some people, just like with where the podcast is now. It's like, oh, I like to listen, it's really good, but they're so long. And I'm like, well, that's what made them successful. That's what made it to the point where it's at. I'm not going to change the formula just for a few opinions.
Yeah.
I keep her at an hour and a half.
Yeah, like your last episode I was listening to there, I stopped. There's 20 minutes left, but I'm gonna turn it on. Like when I get my time, I'm gonna turn it on and leave where I left off, and I'm not gonna forget
Yeah,
So
that's the thing, right? Like you'll listen to 4 hours of Rogan or whoever, but it might take you 2 weeks to do that or 3 weeks to do that. But if it's a good episode, I'm gonna listen all the way to the end, for sure.
yeah, and that's kind of when I try to listen to, say when I'm driving and that, or if I'm doing stuff around the house, I'll turn it on in the background while I'm doing something. And yeah.
Well, I appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
If people want to find you, want to talk to you about some of the things that they've listened to you talk about, how do they do that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to reach me. So obviously Locked and Tagged, that's kind of the clothing brand. So there's always Locked and Tagged if you want to talk Locked and Tagged stuff. But for anything to do with like mental health, or if you want some resources, Semi-Bolt. So Semi-Bolt on Instagram. I don't have a Facebook page or anything like that. It's just Instagram right now. Reach out on there. And then
the lady that you had, the therapist you had, Semi-Bolt, are you able to reach out to her as well?
You could reach out to her. That's a little catharsis. And I believe her link's on Semi-Bolt. So yeah, if you're ever looking for a call in, or you want to try out that service, reach out to her. Also reach out to Semi-Bolt if you're just want to give it a try. If there's some funding there, I'll let you know. But I think we might have a call available on there. So yeah, if there's someone who wants to give her a go, yeah, give her a call. It's a very good service. So
fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. Is there anything that we didn't cover you wanted to chat about that I might have missed?
No, I think that was a good talk. I'm sure we'll be talking again sometime. I got a lot of stuff coming up that you're probably like, oh, heck, this guy.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thanks for your time.